A lot of people are very interested in what is going on in the window on the first floor of American Glass Research at 6:11 and 33 seconds p.m. in Butler, Pennsylvania on July the 13th, when shots are fired at Donald Trump. Now, unrelated to any of that, there was a news item today. Maybe Eric Adams was saying he's going to get drones. Yeah, I think it was Eric Adams. There's a gang, a violent gang of 11-year-olds, if you can believe that or not. Eric Adams said, 11-year-old migrant gang attacking people in a wolf pack style, they said. New York Post said that. But I want to talk to everybody about this window. We've been talking a lot about it. There was some confusion at first. People saw some stuff in the windows, you know, a lot of shooting going on. So people are obviously interested in what's going on over there, but it seems like it's not muzzle flash. And for the same reason it's not muzzle flash, it's not an iPhone flash. I've said it many times, but I want to repeat it, not to argue with anybody, but just because it's a fundamental fact. When you pull the trigger of a gun and it bangs the little thing in the back of the cartridge holding the bullet and explodes the gunpowder that creates the explosive force that shoots it down the barrel of the gun out the front and whatever, you know, at what you're shooting at. I haven't looked at this in a little while. Let's go look at the thing that's in the movie Madagascar, or interpreted in the movie Madagascar. But the point is that explosion, I looked it up, and there's a scientific book. I posted it on Twitter. Somebody who is a ballistics, you know, somebody, uh-oh, what's going on? Is that a wedding? This used to be the polar bear arena, but I don't know about that glass thing. Anyway, this ballistics book, the name of which escapes me, I think I tweeted it. It says that the explosion, I asked ChatGPT, and then I asked it, how do you know? And it said this ballistics book. It says it's between 1/1000th and 1/500th of a second, and that makes sense to me, because when you start photographing guns and things at those and higher speeds, sorry everybody, I missed the musical interlude, or the dancing, that thing was moving around. But when you film muzzle blasts and explosions of small things like that, that's what you're doing, 1,000 frames per second, 5,000 frames per second, and then you start freezing the time and seeing what's going on with that. But if the thing takes 1,000th of a second, and you're photographing 30 frames per second, you're exposing 30 still pictures per second, and the exposure time of your picture normally is 1/60th of a second. So that means there's a whole other 1/60th of a second per 30 segments of seconds where you're not photographing anything at all. And it's equally likely that this 1,000th of a second instantaneous event will happen during the time that you're not taking a picture, and you'll see nothing. So this estimate of 1 to 2 frames of motion blur, of muzzle blast, is just, there's no way around it. I'm not trying to upset anybody. Like I said, if somebody said, oh, you know, I think you could jump off of the Empire State Building and live, I guess maybe if you had some kind of wingsuit, or you know, maybe if you hit the wall and bounced off of a fruit cart, or you'd be in the hospital for 2 years and paralyzed for the rest of your life and technically live. So maybe, I don't think I would test it though. Not that there's any risk to testing this other thing. I just think that the likelihood of an outcome other than what I am proposing is so close to zero that it's, what's the word when something is so close to zero that it's not even worth considering? Anyway, you know, this looks like a giant bubble thing, but no bubbles. Where's the bubble person? Oh, he wants money. Well, you can see the bubble residue around the bubble pool. Let's make a bubble. or bubble. Let's make, well, maybe it's that lady. Oh yeah, she's got the bubble juice. I see her there. All right, well anyway, so the window. I think I figured out what it is, and I think this makes sense. So it's not muzzle blast. It's too small, too contained on screen for too many frames. Now, as far as whether it's suppressed or this test that John is proposing to do will be useful in learning about that. Let's check out the southern part of Central Park where the 11-year-old attack gang is doing its business. But it's worthwhile to test, but it's just definitely not going to stay on frame for 6 frames. That's 1/5 of a second. It's a huge amount of time. It's between 100 and 200 times the amount of time it takes to explode the gunpowder contained in the cartridge when firing a bullet. Look, here's cops doing nothing, listening to the phone while he's walking around. They really are. Oh, maybe they're here to fight the migrant 11-year-old gangs. All right. Well, I guess that's good then. Let them do that. But this thing is on screen for 6 video frames, and it's a lot. Let's look at it, shall we? People were saying, oh, you know, this is kind of deceptive or whatever. I had this tweet that I put up. Here's basically the lay of the sort of facts that we've been given, okay? We've got this window. You can see that dot is just glued to the window, and we know Greg Nicol. It's important that we get his name. There's no H, there's no S. Greg Nicol. I don't know how the incorrect spelling of his name got into the mix, but I'm guilty of it myself. He walks out of the building 2 minutes after the shooting. So there's just a ton of evidence that this guy is somebody that needs to be talked to by authorities, not people. Nobody I'm talking to now, nobody watching should do anything to Greg Nichols. Don't contact him, don't contact his family. You can look up public information on the internet. I'm not in charge of that. I'm just saying nothing I am telling anyone is a call to action, and nobody should do anything based on what I say other than sponsoring the show. You can do that on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I really recommend that you do that. I appreciate that money is tight, and that's why I've worked very closely with Odyssey to provide what is the lowest monthly video streaming subscription that I'm aware of in the industry, just $3 a month and 58 cents for Odyssey. You see, the park wants people to know exactly what I want them to know. None of this crap. So thanks to everybody who's sponsoring the show. And last night we had a great episode with John Cullen where we were talking about this window, using the GigaSync to analyze it. See, there's a lot of people who are trying to participate. And when I say that, you know, if you comment on things that I'm posting and you send me things and you want my attention and you want to interact with me, I interpret that as somebody who wants to participate. So if you want to talk to me, I don't know you. If you going to waste your time contacting me in ways that aren't going to work, go ahead. I'm not trying to tell people what to do. I'm just saying if you want something and that something is to contact me, here's the way to do it. There's a bunch of people who have already figured it out and are doing it in a very helpful way. They send me, like this is great. One viewer was watching the show last night and we were talking about this dot in the window. The thing is glued to the window. I believe I have, is this it? This is, it's in slow motion and far away. I think I have it close up. Let me get the close up in there. That's just a photo of it. People have seen it on the show, I think, a bunch of times, but you know, it's the dot. It shows up in the window. We could see it in the tweet there initially with Greg. It's the dot that shows up in the window. And the thing that's interesting about it is it just really stays glued. I thought I had loaded it in here. Where would it be? Maybe in imported videos? No, local recordings. Well, no, actually, no, here is where it would be. Here it is, I think. Here it is. So people have seen that. And you can see in this video, right there. Oh, this is a new one that I did with enhanced stabilization to get the window, the blow up, to move less. You can really see that that dot, it's just like glued in place, right? And so people say, oh, this is deceptive. Somebody said, no, it's not. This is a 6-frame incident, 1/5 of a second, first shown 3 times in a row at its normal speed, and then shown, I think, twice at 1/10 normal speed, so that you can really observe that phenomenon. And what I'm saying is, if it were a muzzle blast, we'd see one, it would be larger, it wouldn't be so contained as like a dot like that, it would be like a star spread out, kind of snowflake puff looking. When you look at a fire or smoke, it just never looks the same twice. It's an explosion, it just doesn't look like a dot. Secondarily, it's not an iPhone flash, as Clay Higgins had said, and I'm not condemning. A lot of people are like, oh, Clay Higgins is corrupt for not, I don't know, arresting everybody at American Glass. But he said it was a preliminary report, and people who are saying they don't want to listen to Clay Higgins anymore, do what you want. As I said, look at that mud beach. I haven't seen that before. That's sort of a new feature. Is the pond draining? Do people see that? But people are saying, oh, yeah, I'm not going to listen to Clay Higgins anymore. Well, I mean, look, John brought up a great point last night, which is that he really was the one who started this conversation about what is going on in the window when Unsteady Dave released his magnum opus of stupidity. And then when we got the body cams, the conversation shifted to what was happening actually at the moment that Trump was getting shot at. But the thing that John said last night that I found quite interesting is that, look, Clay Higgins is obviously, there's not even a question. So it doesn't matter if, it's not a question of are we getting information to Congress there. He just told you, people are talking about this thing in the window. He went and looked at it. He said the window doesn't open. And that I don't see it open in the video. Why would he lie about a window opening? Obviously somebody could check that. He also said he thinks it's an iPhone flash. Well, that's wrong. So, he's a cop and a congressman, and he knows about probably, I guess, breaking people's balls and stuff, but doesn't know a lot about photography or video or how flash strobes work. I was looking into that, and they generally say that it depends on the power setting and various other things. But again, 1/1000th of a second is a slow photo strobe. It could be as quick as 1/10,000th of a second. And you've seen that when you have those paparazzi videos, like some P. Diddy comes out of a nightclub and it's like bip, 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 and you see the individual frames of the individual flashes blasting the dark. The whole room gets illuminated for a split second. That's what would happen inside American Glass if somebody was in there firing flash photos in a dark room. You'd see, we can see into that window. For a moment, if the lights were on versus off in that room, it would look different. And if a giant flash went off in the middle of the room, you'd see some change in the general illumination of the room. But of course, we're not seeing that because this is a friggin' dot. It is a dot. And it doesn't move. I mean, maybe it moves a pixel or two, but the shake you're seeing in the background where the frame is tilting and, going kind of downward and diagonal, that is from where I've stabilized the video. I've said, okay, I want that building to not move. So it says, okay, in order to do that, it's like the whole outside of the picture needs to move around this shakiness. So that's the subtracted shakiness. The camera's moving a lot. If that was a reflection in the window, we would see it streak by like all those other reflections. There were reflections pointed out at other times in the video, but there's a lot of people who are trying to debunk my information here by showing a still image. Somebody showed the last frame of this sequence. Watch in the slow motion, the very last frame, it kind of squiggles. Watch it again. Somebody said, oh, what do you mean the window doesn't open? There's the window handle. There it is, you see it right there, but it's not a window handle. That is motion blur. That is the last frame of a, see, it should have play again, but you gotta go to something else. Whoops, no, we don't see that yet. All right, well, but that's motion blur on the last frame of a light that is being illuminated and extinguished in the period of 1/5 of a second. That is 100 times slower than the explosion within a gun. And in my mind, that could be roughly equivalent to the time of a human momentarily pushing a switch, perhaps to fire the infrared beam of a laser rangefinder. And see, that makes sense to me because if we look at this dot, it's sort of right at human eyeball height where you would hold a rangefinder that could have a laser on it, or you might have it on a tripod. I don't know. I've seen people operate rangefinders handheld. And so people are saying, well, what the hell would somebody need a rangefinder for in the room if there's no gun firing out of there? And that perplexed me for a little while. I said, well, maybe it's a remote gun, maybe he's controlling a remote gun. And we showed that technology exists, but I think rightly people had a hard time imagining that you'd, set up this robotic gun and rely on that. It just seems like a bad plan. And I agree. So the fact that the technology exists is not enough. It's got to be practical and likely. And I think it's definitely much more likely that if you wanted to do such a high stakes thing as try to assassinate a former president, you'd really want to make sure it was done properly. And that's another question that people have. If they have all this capability and technology and skilled shooters, how could they miss? I'll address that. But we discovered that there's this company that makes this software that you put on your tracking point rifle. Well, this is the viewer. That's the scope that the guy in the tracking point video was using. So that's the spotter, and that's what he sees on the phone through the scope. And this woman was shooting the rifle, and she's not an expert shooter at all. So the idea was he's her spotter, and I mean, she's shooting this rifle, and he sees where it's going and what the wind is and where it hits, and I guess he tells her, clock up 1 degree, right 2 degrees, pow, and then she fires. I guess. I don't know. I'm not a gun expert. I'm just looking at these videos and trying to discern what the hell happened. And then what happens is periodically people who do know a lot more about guns than I do chime in and tell me stuff. So this person that was doing a wonderful job at crowdsourcing said, yeah, hey, my husband was in the Army or whatever, knows about guns, and he says that thing is a, whatever this brand is, monocular, Vortex, right? And it says it has a thing that you can put on there to put the red dot signal on there. That's their website that said that. Their YouTube video, the guy says that. Here's a little thing that you can put a red dot laser on. So, okay. So he's standing next to her, spotting for her. He's using a phone and an app with a GPS. The phone has the GPS. The app has, just like they know exactly where I am right now within a foot or a few inches or whatever it is. What if the guy in the room is the spotter for the guy on the roof or the guy in the second floor? And what he's doing when that dot appears is taking a measurement on Trump or whatever to say, hey, 1 degree this way, 1 degree that way, spotter helping the sniper line up for the second shot, right? I mean, people tell me that's what the spotter does. If you know about snipers, fill me in. Does that make sense? And then people say, no, Jason, that guy's in the room and the thing is over here and over there. How could he be the spotter? He's got to be standing next to her. I don't think so, because the whole point is that is a computer that is doing all the, people watch the video and who have done it without a computer will either say, wow, that's amazing, or this is nonsense, I could do it with a dial. But my understanding is it takes some amount of the computation out and puts it in the hands of a computer. And when I have involved myself in processes like that, I have a very good understanding of how computerizing certain traditional processes can work, such as animation. Love the shoes. Animation and other things, tracking, the type of stuff I used to do with Lee and his brother. It does things like, if I have a GPS and a laser rangefinder and I'm in the first floor window, maybe the GPS in my phone knows where the other part of the software is and says, okay, the sniper is on the roof or in the window at these GPS coordinates, spotter is in the room with these GPS coordinates, shoot the laser at the target, bip, bip, I calculate a triangle and give the sniper the information that they need, and the second shot is coming. Is that what's happening out of the room? I don't know, but it sounds like it would make sense. They do shoot a lot of bullets at Trump, and maybe they say, hey, it's going to be windy. We need a spotter to tell us where the second shot should go. I don't know. I've never tried to shoot anybody. I don't know exactly what a sniper spotter is supposed to do. But in my mind, I was thinking, well, I mean, this guy's sitting there looking at statistics and facts and information relevant to the shot, dialing things and fixing things to make it easier to achieve the goal. Kind of strikes me as a first assistant in the camera department, who usually is, standing right next to the cinematographer or the camera or the director, depending on how you're shooting and what you're shooting. But of course, radios and Wi-Fi monitors and all that, sometimes the AC has to be up in a tree on the radio pulling focus. So is it possible to remote the spotter for a sniper? I don't know enough about it to say definitively, but I look at this software and this technology, and as I attempt to understand what the advertisements are telling me it's intended to do, I think I've figured out what is going on in that room. So if that's the case, and I hope people like Corey Mills and Eli Crane and whoever, and Clay Higgins, whoever else is investigating this, I hope they see this, and I don't know, they act on it. In my mind, the thing to be done is get this guy, Greg Nicol, and just start asking him some questions, like in court, I can't do that. I'm not suggesting that anybody do anything other than Congress or who. I was listening to Glenn Beck, which I don't often do, but it came up on YouTube, and he was interviewing Steve Friend, that FBI agent turned whistleblower, who I have to say I have a good impression of him. I generally don't trust anybody who has ever had anything to do with the FBI, but that being said, this guy, I don't have any evidence that he's ever done anything wrong, and everything he says makes sense. He was talking about is he Pakistani or Iranian? There's some guy who they said, oh, we arrested this guy because he was, plotting an assassination or whatever. And Steve Friend was saying that this is straight out of the FBI's playbook. He literally used that word. He said what I will call the playbook. And what he's saying is there's an agenda at the FBI. I mean, this is what I've been telling everybody, that they want to get rid of encryption software, and so that they can just back doors into everything. And he said that Lindsey Graham, I heard that when Lindsey Graham was saying that at the Senate hearings about how stupid the Secret Service is, that Lindsey Graham wants to get rid of encryption. He was talking like they want to make 256-bit encryption military technology and make it not available to civilians, like a nuclear bomb or something like that. You're just not allowed to have it. And that means the FBI and the cops could break into whatever civilian device, your computer, your phone, Apple, Google, anybody who's interested in cybersecurity in the least does not want this, but this is the Valerie Caproni FBI going dark agenda. That Caproni was the first, I don't think she thought of it, but she was the first one who ever started talking about it when she was the FBI general counsel, and she's certainly one of the most obese, disgusting criminals I'm aware of. And I'm not accusing her of being a criminal, I'm just citing the statements of the late John Conyers, ranking member of the Judiciary Committee who he determined that Caproni had broken the law. I should look it up. It's like 4,000 times, 400 times, many, many, many times, all involving the violations of the Fourth Amendment and the use of these national security letters, which that's become de rigueur now. It's common practice. That's all they do, right? That's how they got Trump's DMs. Elon Musk was pissed about that. And there was something else that they just got with some kind of, they're using different names for it now, but I could tell by the way they described it, it was a national security letter. So, friend, yeah, I mean, he basically was saying that that's what they're doing here. And that's what I could tell, because George was pushing that stupid story about the Pakistani guy. He always wants people running around investigating whatever is not important to the investigation. That's why it might sometimes seem like I'm being rude. I don't mean to do that, but there are a lot of social engineers who come at me, and if your approach is similar to theirs, you could be easily mistaken for one. And by that I mean anyone who's like, why isn't Jason investigating this? Jason should be investigating that. Why doesn't Jason do this, that, or the other? You go investigate whatever you want, and if you find something interesting and tell it to me, I guarantee I'll become interested. But I mean, I'm not a wedding DJ here taking requests for stupid things to investigate. And I don't mean to insult people who offer stupid suggestions, but smarten up or just sit back and watch. Because you see, people are telling me things like, could it be this? Could it be that? Did space aliens shoot Donald Trump, and was Elvis in the glass building on the first floor? I mean, I can't say for sure. I haven't run those things down, but it sounds pretty stupid and unlikely. But what I'm getting at is, I just don't, someone sent me a thing, they're like, oh, here's somebody's arm coming out of the window. And I said, well, okay. So first of all, that is not in the moment when the shooting is happening at 6/11/33. So it's just not even relevant to anything. And secondarily, it's not on the police body camera video. It's from unsteady, unethical, stupid Dave. And the reason why I'm just not even interested in looking at anything from that video, any screen capture, anything at all from that video, is the same reason that I arrived at the first week we were dealing with that guy. It came to my attention that there was an eyewitness who had shot a video during the shooting outside American Glass Research, and that it was this guy, Dave Stewart. He had a TikTok version that had been released with text all over it and his social media handle on it, and I didn't mind that, except it was posted at 50% of its normal resolution. It was not full HD, and it had been transcoded. It had been recompressed in a way that makes it blurry, less sharp, less detail, confusing artifacts appear. And so you're basically looking at nonsense when you're looking at that video. You're looking at artifacts like, so somebody said, oh, this little wiggle here is a door handle. No, it isn't. Okay, and so I'm not saying, oh, I'm too good to look at Dave's video. I'm saying when I asked him if he could release publicly his complete original camera file, I was doing that not because I wanted to do anything other than use it to compare against all the other videos and have a known quantity that was his most original file in a known place, like a Google Drive or a Dropbox or whatever. And I'm saying, give it to Congress, give it to Tom Fitton, give it to, what's his name, Chris Martenson. You don't have to give it to me. If he doesn't like me, I just want to know that that file is there and be able to look at it. And I didn't think his excuse was honest. He said he was making a documentary, so he didn't want to release it, and I just don't trust the guy. So the possibility that things have been added to the video cannot be excluded. So I don't want to look at an arm coming out of the window. If you have that on a police body camera video, I'll look at that. And people say, oh, you trust the police? No. But if you get into court with a police video and it's determined that it's been doctored, then you have a pretty serious case on your hands. If you get into court with a video from stupid, unsteady Dave, and it's determined that it's been doctored, you're a dick. And you get kicked out of court and nothing happens. So I'm relying on the police body camera videos because they are the closest things that we have to evidence, and you can bet that they're going to be authenticated in Congress, in court, in civil cases, in criminal cases, and so we're wasting our time. If people just want to idly argue on X or make, videos that get lots and lots of views on YouTube, sure, go crap around with Dave's video, go make screen captures that we don't know where the video came from, we don't know what the original source is, and we're looking at a single still frame from a sequence of video that is more misleading than it is illuminating. I'm not trying to complain for people, I'm trying to help everybody understand what's helpful and what's not, because we're getting real close to a point where people who are not contributing in a way that's helpful, I'm not trying to be a jerk, I'm just saying there's so much information coming at me, I just don't have time to look at nonsense. So either you're going to be wasting your own time, or you got to organize material in a way that makes sense and look at material that makes sense. If you find something that you think is interesting, and it's what I'm describing, a bad quality video that doesn't have time code on it, that you can't easily determine right away where it came from, and by that I mean if it says Butler Police body worn camera, 12-2-110, we know where that came from. You can go back to Tom Fitton, back to the Judicial Watch body camera release, and that's like a known quantity. I was actually very disappointed to see that Judicial Watch released a edited compilation of stuff that made no sense to me, because all those videos have already been released, and 3 or 4 people sent it to me this morning saying, oh, new video release. So see, that's what I am trying to do. I'm trying to disambiguate the materials that we've all been looking at, because it's become a mess. And I think that that is what the people who don't want this crime to be solved are trying to do. That's what they want. They want George to tell you, here's the wrong water tower, go investigate the van, go investigate the Uric Armory, what's going on in the vents. People want me to, is it possible someone's shooting from the air conditioning vents? I mean, it's possible that Elvis and the space aliens are doing something, but what evidence do we have that somebody is shooting from the vents? If you have a video of someone in a vent, and people say, oh, well, the police blocked off the vent. Yeah, but there's also an air conditioner right there that somebody could, they want to keep people off the roof of this building. Obviously, lots of people are coming to American Glass Research. Look, something's going on at Back to the Future. This sidewalk is busted up. So I don't mean to be railing, because like I said, I did start with a good example of how somebody helped me with crowdsourcing. I'm saying I don't know about guns. If you're married to somebody who is in the Army, who can look at the thing and say, yeah, that's a Vortex, whatever, and then send me the website, that's super helpful. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's advanced our knowledge. That helped me figure out what's likely going on in the room. People who are telling me to look in the air conditioning vents, who the hell is talking about the air conditioning vents? I'm not saying don't look at it, you go look at it. I'm not like Nate, what's his name, Klopp? I'm not like that guy. I'm not saying, no, you can't look in the air conditioning vents, get over it. Look in it all day long, all you want. I don't give a shit about it until you find something in there. Don't tell me to go look at it. That's social engineering crap. And so if you get a rude response or if you get blocked, that's what's happening there. People can see what happens when you send me good information. It gets featured in the show. It moves the hypothesis forward. This makes a lot of sense. Every piece of technology that I've described would work unless somebody can explain to me how it wouldn't. It would leave the type of artifact that I'm talking about, that red dot in the window, for 1/5 of a second. Not 1/500th, not 1/1000th. 1/5 of a second. 6 video frames as recorded at 30 frames per second. Those criminals want to draw my attention and get on camera. I call them criminals because this is counterfeit material that they're selling, and they're undermining the economy. I'm sure none of these guys pay tax. Rolex available. These are all junk. Stolen stuff, of course. This guy should go to jail. Don't buy any of this stuff if you come to New York. So that technology all makes sense. Having a spotter in another room and locking everybody out of the building so that they don't understand what the hell he's doing makes sense. You see, it also makes sense to me because we've heard so much about a rangefinder. And, you know, it's the kind of thing where that software on the tracking point precision rifle, that probably has a couple different pieces. It's got an optical sensor on the rifle, it's got a laser that you can put on the, it's got a couple different components, and then it's got cell phone stuff and whatever. So if one of those components, when they spend all this time telling us that, they found a rangefinder, my first question is, would somebody making a 130-yard shot, would they need a rangefinder, particularly if they didn't have a spotter with them? What's the shooter doing with the rangefinder? Don't you just go up there, look at Trump, point the gun and shoot? Why do you need the rangefinder? It almost feels to me like somehow a component of this electronic gun that was a rangefinder or looked like a rangefinder or was part of a set of equipment that made up a rangefinder got left somewhere that somebody who wasn't involved in the conspiracy saw, and they had to improvise and say, oh yeah, this was this guy's, like it accidentally got seen and they planted it on him or something like that. It just doesn't make sense to me. And there's certain things that they've been telling us all about. The FBI wants to tell you about drones, but we have no evidence that a drone was flying. They don't want to tell you, they burned up the dead guy. Don't want to tell you about that, but they're ready to talk about drones. What the hell is going on here today? It's very loud. Pakistan Punjab opens the door to revolution. Nawaz Sharif, IT City. No thanks. You gotta be kidding. So we have some kind of rock concert happening. I think we got crime happening. Pokemon. That's a giant costume, isn't it? That's pretty loud. Anyway, yeah, this hypothesis makes sense to me. I haven't seen anybody's arm coming out of that window. I'm not hunting around Dave's stupid video to look for artifacts. I mean, they've had a month. They're also telling us other things today. There's something else they told us today that people were telling me, what do you think about this? I think anything they come out with from the FBI about Pakistan or Iran is nonsense narrative massaging that, you know, they've had a month to think about what we're saying and what we're doing. They had Nate Klopp and his band of idiots. That was actually primarily, I think, Gary and his band of idiots, although I don't have proof that those guys are affiliated. The time proximity when they all started messing with me and John caused me to think that. I could be wrong. You could look at the same facts that I saw and you might come to a different conclusion. That's the beauty part. You get to decide. All these girls have kind of copied the naked cowboy. It's a whole naked thing. I guess this is something with Venezuela today. Venezuelan flags for sale. I would imagine that's a good opportunity for Venezuelan gang stuff to happen. They've really been growing. Here we have Spider-Man, Mickey Mouse, all going to work. Stealing the copyrights of other, I don't know. I mean, if I was the CEO of Disney, which is an asshole company, that's their, here's the naked cowboy. Let's talk to the naked cowboy about Trump assassination. Naked cowboy, what's happening, bro?
How are you?
What do you think about the Trump assassination attempt?
Let's see. It's election time again, my friend. Donald's ship is coming in. We're taking back America. America first, it has to be. Maximizing our liberty. We're taking back America.
Naked cowboy.
You need a president by your side who stands up and says, fight, fight, fight. Sounds like a good idea to me. Thank God for Donald J. Trump, my friends, making America great again. Taking back America. I'm mixing up my two
Thank
Trump
you.
songs.
That's all right. Thanks, Naked Cowboy. How can people find you online?
Well, they can just come outside and find me right here. But I'm nakedcowboy.com.
Always here. Thanks, Nate. See you soon, man. Good to see you. Thanks. Naked Cowboy. There we go. World famous. Oh my God, there he is in the snow. I've always told people he's out in the snow. I don't know how he does it. But here you go, at the Naked Cowboy. And then on TikTok also, the Naked Cowboy. So people can follow the Naked Cowboy. It's pretty funny. I tell you, that guy has been there a long time. This lady seems like a new arrival. Uh-oh, she's aroused. It's a dangerous thing to just fall asleep in the middle of the street in New York. I don't recommend it. But it's also a little bit dangerous to walk around checking comments as I do that. But I'm curious, what do people who know about guns think about this? Is it sensible? Is it possible? Would this technology work? Heavy Metal says in Boston, women went topless in the street to free the boobs. Oh, we're getting a little radio interference. It's not entirely surprising in the middle of Times Square. I hope the broadcast doesn't get disrupted, but you know, when that does happen, people can always see the full broadcast on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. Another technological advantage it has is that I can fix videos that have problems. Can't do that on YouTube. You got to make a new link, and it introduces all kinds of problems. So Odyssey is fantastic. It's become the largest, even the free subscription is totally free, and you get access to the largest repository. Holy crap, is that kid's mom? I should have had the camera facing forward. It's the largest repository of Crowdsource the Truth videos on the internet for free. Plus, you could sponsor the show for only $3 a month and a 58-cent Odyssey fee. It's the most economical way to access Crowdsource the Truth legacy videos. But what do people think? Anxious to see the simulation going on. Remember the last time in New York City felt overwhelmed. Simulation? I don't understand. What do people who know about guns think? Is this possibly... I noticed that Mike Adams, the health ranger, has followed me. It would be nice to put the past in the past. I apologize, Mike. We can talk about Paul Cottrell in the future, but if I can provide information that's useful and he can provide information that's useful. Again, my goal is that there's an investigation that kind of hasn't begun yet or is just getting underway. And as John pointed out, when Clay Higgins goes and investigates what we're doing, if we can get enough attention on this such that Congress feels compelled that they have to do something, that's the idea. Like maybe we've just presented evidence that will be confronted, you know, that Greg Nicol will be confronted with in court. And maybe if we hadn't all done this together, maybe that wouldn't have happened. So thank you, Mike, for the message. And I responded there on Twitter. Everybody can see what we're talking about. He said, yeah, because somebody, first I thought this was a targeting, you know, like painting a target with a laser, but some viewer who is a military person knew about that stuff. and said you can't do that with just a dot. It has to, the laser has to stay on. Not that it's not a dot, that not a momentary blast. I mean, you can't just bip it like that. You gotta leave the laser on. So that makes sense. So that eliminates that possibility. But I've used rangefinders on shoots to focus. You stand, you know, the AC stands next to the camera, looks and bing, okay, that's 142 feet on this lens. Our hyperfocal distance is that. We're going to set an f2.8. Focus starts here, goes to there. We're calculating all this stuff. So you use a rangefinder, and the ones that I've used, you can either, have almost a trigger or a button, and you just either hold it and the laser stays on, or you tap it and it just bip, it would do that. So if he just like, okay, get the measurement again because Trump moved, bing, tap it, and it automatically sends something to the rifle that tells the sniper what to do. That's my understanding of what that software in the tracking point video is doing. Maybe I don't understand it, and somebody who does will tell me how I've got it wrong. But that's the purpose of putting this information out. Not to be right, not to be first. If I'm helpful and I'm able to do that, that's good, but I'm not like trying to rush to break stories. Or a lot of people are also asking me, where do I think the shooters were? That's not something that I think I'm able to calculate really from what I'm looking at. I'm just looking at evidence that I see. Yeah, Paul Cottrell is a guy, a George Webb associate, who I became very upset when Mike Adams was interviewing him. I don't want to go back to the stuff that I was disagreeing with Mike Adams about. I'd like to focus on the things that he and I could agree upon, and if there's a way that his work and my work can intersect and help something. Okay, so this weed store is back open. It's interesting. I guess they just close them, open them again, close them. But anybody who wants to look at this can, and people also got a great look at GigaSync in operation last night. It's not really something that I can or want to share as an open source like here, everybody have it and work on it, because I don't think that that would help that tool improve. The idea is, and it's also, somebody was like, oh, that sequence that you made, this one here, he said, that's misleading. And I said, well, maybe you don't, I didn't say this, I thought this. I said, maybe you don't understand what you're looking at, but I disagree that it's misleading because I've got time code numbers in there. I tell you exactly what camera it's come from. You see in the upper right-hand corner there? Everybody can see that. And so if somebody thinks what I've put there is somehow misleading or false or not true to the original video, just go to Tom Fitton's Judicial Watch release, download that video, go to that time code point, and scrutinize that video all you want. Download my video here from Twitter. Do people know how to do that? How to download Twitter videos? But just look at it, go through, and you look at whatever you want. It's not a magic trick. I'm using these essentially open source videos now. Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch, put it out. Everybody can get it. That's the idea. The output from it is open source. How I got there is transparent. The source material for it is open source. That's what's open source about it. This is like my tool that I'm not. The reason I don't want to give it to anybody is that it's then going to become a whole lot of interaction with somebody who's like, oh, I'm trying to do this and it's not working. It's like, I don't want to get in the tech support business. People who find things. So this is another good example. Somebody watched the show last night and they said, hey, you guys were talking about that moment where the same officer, this guy, he's like the Roger Deakins of body cameras. He captures, this is the guy who climbs up to the roof. And remember, the body cam is kind of, when you see cops, it's like here. So when it makes sense that the camera is like just peeking over the roof. His whole head is up there. And the same thing we're talking about with parallax, right? As his head goes up, he will see that guy. It looks like the shooter on the roof maybe threw something at him, is what it looks like to me. And somebody watched that and said, hey, there's a frame after what you were pointing at that also has something flying through the air. And that person did a screen capture of our show at the moment that it happened, where my software interface was up there, and that has the time code number on it. So I'm able to find exactly what this person is talking about. If I have to spend 10 minutes hunting around to find everything that every person sends me, I do nothing but that all day, and it becomes counterproductive. So I'm not saying that my time is more important than your time or anything like that. I'm just saying this is like 1,000 people coming at one, and if 980 of them are just sending crap, it's a signal to noise ratio issue that I'm just trying to address with people who want to participate. By the way, nobody has to do anything. People can just watch, wonder, question, and all that sort of stuff. So again, I'm not saying don't ask questions. I'm just saying don't ask them of me. If you're worried about what's going on in the air conditioning vent, I'm not talking about that right now. I don't think there's anything going on in the air conditioning vent, and you should be able to look at what I'm talking about and understand that that takes me away from the focus. Telling me about something that's going on with something that I'm talking about, super duper helpful. So anyway, we'll see if we are able to get Congress to do anything to these guys. A lot of people also like to put in comments telling me nothing's going to happen. Well, okay, yeah, that's possible. But I mean, you know, that's like saying someday everybody's going to die, so why bother doing anything? I don't really like that attitude. Geofencing. Well, that's the other thing, right, exactly. Congress, or I don't think the FBI is, oh, that's the other thing that Steve Friend FBI said that I wanted to comment on that I thought was very smart. That's what I mean. I mean, he's saying things that make it seem like he's a legitimate, honest guy, and I don't know him. So, I mean, I think I spoke to him for 1 second maybe when he was testifying in Congress there, but I think he's being honest. He said that he has no faith in the FBI to investigate this properly. I agree with that. But he raised the point that the Pennsylvania State Police could do something. And I mean, I don't know, who knows if they're a legitimate law enforcement or equally as corrupt as the FBI. But that struck me as a good idea. Like maybe there's a district attorney or state police detective. I don't know how that works. People who are in the Pennsylvania State Police or know about cop stuff will have a way better idea about that than me. More stolen counterfeit stuff. Criminals. So Weed World is out of business still. I guess I don't know why that other place is allowed to open. How the mighty have fallen. Weed World was once all over the place. Now, shuttered. Or maybe those guys are selling weed. Ha! It's interesting. I wonder, these landlords who gave leases to the weed stores. Hey, what's that over there? M. Night Shyamalan. He's a movie director. Why does he have a storefront? Let's look at that. Oh, it's got to be an ad for his movie. Yeah, it's an ad for an M. Night Shyamalan movie. That's the guy. Oh, these guys are selling DVDs. That's the guy who made I See Dead People. What's that called? Sixth Sense. Yeah. All right, so we're out of the 11-year-old gang neighborhood. Let me see if I can get back to the comments and see if anybody has anything to say. Has anybody ever used any of that kind of rangefinder, cell phone, iPad, phone, sniper software? Yeah, right, Mike. Mike is like, let's keep hunting for Bigfoot. I mean, that's the thing. I see people sending me things from the body cam videos that have been like uploaded, downloaded, captured, retranscoded. It's like, why are you doing this? Just get the original video and let's talk about the original video. Not because I'm picky, but because you're looking at things that aren't there and you're missing things that are. Hopefully people will see this information and somebody, I call the company, I'll call the company, no, they might not want to talk about it. Somebody's going to know how that stuff works. As far as what it looks like it's intended to do, what I'm saying and what I know math can do and those kind of computer programs, I don't think the fact that the two guys are in a different location matters if you have a precise GPS location and a computer that knows how to do math. Am I wrong? I could be wrong. Snipers use rangefinders. No, I know, but it's not just the rangefinder, it's the concept of the remote spotter, where the spotter is in the room and the sniper is either on the roof, so he's illicitly helping the guy on the roof, or it's somebody in the second floor, or maybe the video with the arm coming out of the window is real, and somebody should, instead of sending me some decimated piece of crap, use that energy to convince Unsteady Dave to release this original file or be relegated to history as a shyster who was just promoting edits of bad, non-evidence videos while there were murderers on the loose, just like suppressors, right? Yeah, no, I'm not questioning if they use them or not. Oh, so you're saying the guy on the roof would have a rangefinder even for 130 feet? That's what I'm saying. Street Ghost says 150 yards, no rangefinder needed. See, I also know that because when Cullen and I went shooting in the desert, I can't remember if it was 100, I think it was 300 yards. We have to ask Cullen, but I made some shot that he and other people felt was quite impressive, and I didn't use a rangefinder. We just had a scope and like some target. He had a styrofoam head all the way down there, and you see it in the scope, and just look at it and shoot. Didn't have a rangefinder. So that's what I mean. Why would he even have that there? Plus, if you're a 20-year-old kid who spent all this money on explosives, and how is any of this happening? This is like the baby or something. I don't know who this guy is. Right? Isn't that a weird, it's like a circus clown or something. It is Madison Square Garden. Maybe the circus is in town. When I was a kid, this is where you would go to see the circus. Smell like elephant crap in there. Actually, the last time I went to the circus, I guess with my first wife. Yeah, we went to some Russian circus. This was hilarious. Russian circus is much different. They had dogs that could do handstands. And I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. And Tatiana said, all dogs can do a handstand. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? I've never seen a dog do a handstand before. But you gotta understand, it's almost like Trump. You gotta be able to interpret. What she meant was any dog could be trained to do a handstand through a rigorous process if you begin when they are young and they have strong forequarters. But it's shorthand, all dogs can do a handstand. And it's like, okay, I get it. Same with Trump. He's like, Elon Musk, you're a brilliant genius. Everything you make is obsolete. This is a wheel and a wall. It works. Trump is hilarious, even if you don't like him, undeniably funny. So this is getting better, I suppose, as it gets closer to done. It still looks pretty junky for how long they took to make it, I think. Been about an hour here on this walk, and I am eager to hear what some gun experts will think. Because, right, I mean, last night, Cullen said, you take the first shot and then dial the next. And I remember thinking, like, boy, seems like a kind of a bad process. What if it's important that you hit on the first shot? And I guess it is, obviously that's preferred, but if you didn't, wouldn't you want a spotter rather than not have a spotter? It's hard to follow the comments here. Jane Doe says, give up on Dave, he's not getting. That's what I mean. I have given up on Dave because he's not giving up the footage. And I did that basically the first day, but other people then insisted on continuing to look at and talk about his nonsense. And so last night I said, this is the one and only, because we looked at that whole deceptive social engineering video that Nate Klopp made to kind of crap on John. And what we did was we looked at the fact that Nate was showing you events, everything that happened not at 6/11/33 and wasn't what I was talking about. And yes, there were headlight reflections in the window. There's reflections from the headlights in the window on this same police officer's body cam a few seconds before or after this event of interest, but that's not what we're seeing in the window at 6/11/33, because as I demonstrated last night, as the officer moves past the window, because the reflection is of a distant object, we get parallax as he moves by. Let's see if we can demonstrate it here. See, look at the lights inside the pizza place. And as I move past, no, that's not good because they're not pressed up against the window. See that light that's right next to this vertical bar? I move a little bit this way and it moves away from the window. So that means the dot that we're seeing is very close to the window pane, to the vertical side of the window pane, because there's no parallax as we move past it. It's like right up on the window practically. And if something was a car all the way reflecting from far away, there's even more parallax than that. So that thing stays in the position that it's in because it's close to the window and it's stationary in there. It's like the pointer of a rangefinder on a scope being used by a spotter who probably has an iPhone with him that is able to calculate the differential in his distance and the shooter's distance and immediately send whatever calculations the shooter wants to the shooter in a way that's intended to right the aim on the target. And also, to answer the question that I said I would address back up there at Central Park, if they had all this technology and all this wonderful equipment, how did they miss? My first thought is this is complicated. Something's gonna F up. Somebody just almost got hit by a mail truck, and that's not good. So for instance, what if the shooter put the cell phone down and readjusted himself 6 inches, and now the cell phone sends a calculation to the rifle that's off by some amount that causes him to miss? I mean, frankly, this would explain a lot. And also, the other piece of evidence is, we know that Greg, what's his name there? He is first guy out. First guy to leave the building at 2 minutes later. So what's he doing in the building? All this stuff about vents and whatever. How do you get out of the vent and out of the front door in 2 minutes? 2 minutes sounds like the amount of time to pack some stuff into a bag so nobody knows you just had it out. Look around the room, make sure everything's okay, and calm yourself down and casually walk out of the front door. I don't know if you're going to be able to make your way out of the air conditioning vent and out of the front door in 2 minutes. So I mean, I'm not trying to crowdsource all the wild, insane speculation anybody can think of. I'm trying to stick to the things that we know are facts. And I mean, anybody's like, oh, the cops, you don't believe the cops. You just got to be thinking about the whole process of how could something possibly happen and how do we get as close to that as we can? And that is by relying on evidence that can and will be authenticated and not, I don't know where these shooters would be. I just know we got a red dot locked to the window for 1/5 of a second, and there's only a limited number of things that it could be. And out of all those things, there's only a limited number that would make sense to be there at the precise moment that a bullet is fired. This guy's an idiot. And the best one seems to be a computerized rangefinder spotter deal like this tracking point precision thing. And by the way, I'm not blaming that tracking point precision rifle company. I don't think they have any idea this happened at all. I mean, you go buy that, they don't, they have no idea what you're going to do with it. But anyway, that's the hypothesis right now. If somebody has figured out some aspect of it that's wrong, please tell me, send me a DM or, get onto Twitter there. But you got to have evidence. Don't just tell me no. Don't just tell me no, it isn't. I don't agree. You're going to have some evidence because I've been scrutinizing evidence for quite a long time. Oh. And not just guessing and making stuff up. So thanks for watching, everybody. Yeah, at JG_CSTT to follow on X if you aren't. And become a sponsor, please, on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. It's the most economical way to sponsor the show. You get access to a huge sponsor-exclusive library. It's also got, Odyssey has their new decentralized, censorship-resistant technology. And there was some issue in the transition, but it seems like it's been sorted out. I was working with their tech support people. They're very, very helpful. And people who've been watching the live streams the past few nights have been telling me it seems like the problem has been resolved. So that's good. They're very responsive, unlike so many other companies. Please support the show on Odyssey. It also supports Odyssey, and we need these alternative technology companies that aren't YouTube. You can also sponsor on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And remember, on Patreon, I think you can get a 7-day free trial. So if you are wondering what the sponsor exclusive material is like, you can check that out. Thanks for tuning in and have a great night. It seems like it's about to rain. Better get inside. I wonder what she thinks of the assassination.